Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is a book that can be read as a bedtime story to young children, chapter by chapter, while being enjoyed as much by the parents who take the time to do so. It will give children an introduction into the world of fantasy and perhaps lead them to such classics as Tolkien's The Hobbit, Le Guin's Earthsea books and, of course, J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. When people today think of fantasy books for youngsters, they usually mention Harry Potter, and with good reason. Hundreds of millions of copies of J.K. Rowling's books have been sold around the world in different languages. While they're aimed at children, they also seem to have captivated many adults. As I've mentioned in a previous podcast, this may well be because the average reading age, in English at least, in most Western countries is about the same as a 10-year-old. They are great books, and the films that follow them have enchanted both children and their parents in much the same way. But I am a bigger fan of The Little Prince. Written more than 80 years ago by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, it sold more than 150 million copies and, like the Harry Potter books, has charmed people of all ages ever since. Despite its style as a children's book, The Little Prince makes profound observations about life, people and human nature, which have resonated with adults over the decades. It's a short book, a little over 100 pages, with simple yet captivating illustrations, also by the author, which bring to life the small being at the story's heart. The narrator is a pilot who is stranded in the Sahara Desert, far from civilization. He must fix his plane before his supply of water runs out. It is here that he meets the Little Prince, who's flown down to Earth from his tiny asteroid. There's a gentle clash of views in their conversations between the adult world, governed by the laws of nature, and the world of the Little Prince, which is determined only by the limits of imagination. The concerns of the adult world are often shown up to be lamentably silly. Over the course of days, while the narrator attempts to repair his plane, the prince tells him his life story, about the asteroid he used to live on, the rose he fell in love with, and the other planets he's visited, each of which is inhabited by just one adult. There's the king with no subjects, who only issues orders that will be followed, such as commanding the sun to set at sunset, a drunkard who drinks to forget the shame of drinking, and an ancient geographer who has never been anywhere or seen any of the things he writes about. While adult readers can find deep meanings in the Little Prince's various encounters, they can also be charmed back to childhood by this wise but innocent visitor from beyond the earth. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was a perfectionist. He wrote in the small hours, fueled by copious amounts of coffee, and early drafts of the story show he would sometimes cross out 100 words and replace them with just one. The book draws on his own experience in the Sahara. 7 years before he wrote The Little Prince, he crashed in the desert along with his co-pilot. They were only saved from certain death when a Bedouin on a camel discovered them. Saint-Exupéry wrote and illustrated the manuscript during the summer and fall of 1942. When it was published, it received a warm reception, but there were some raised eyebrows. The New York Times asked, can you clutter up a narrative with paradox and irony and still hold the interest of 8 to 10-year-olds? The answer is yes. More than 80 years after it was first published, it is still selling millions of copies every year. The fantasy of The Little Prince works because the logic of the story is based on the imagination of children rather than the tired realism of adults. I think that is why I am in love with the fantasy genre. It keeps me in touch with my inner child and is a defence against the harsh realities of the adult world. Well, that's all for this episode. If you like these podcasts and find them useful, please follow or subscribe and share them with your friends. If you want to help with the cost of making them, you can buy me a coffee. Links to all the books I recommend can be found below.